Good afternoon, members. Mr. Tommy Cheung, the chair, is out of town, so I will be chairing the special FC meetings. There will be 8 meetings comprising of 20 sections to scrutinize the estimates of the year 2015-16, just to make sure that we will not be giving the administration provisions that exceed the money needed for implementing the policies. The quorum is the chair plus 8 members. At the beginning of each session, I'm going to invite the relevant Director Bureau to give a short opening introduction, and then members may ask questions. Over 7,000 written questions have been asked by members. The government has promised to provide written replies to the first 3,300 written questions. For the rest, the government will try to provide answers before the 22nd of April. There will be replies for members later. Depending on the number of members wishing to speak, I will then decide the time limit. For those who would like to ask questions, please press the button to put forward your request. If you would like to, all questions must be related to the estimates. If you would like to follow up on a particular written reply, please quote the reply serial number in the top rightmost corner, for example CSB 001, and then the reply serial number will be projected onto the screen, and then members and officials may search for the relevant reply by using the desktop computer. If there is sufficient time, you may have follow-up questions in writing. The forms have been tabled before you. Please give them to our staff before end of the session, and then the administration will try to give an answer before 22nd of April. First of all, Civil Service. Secretary for the Civil Service. Chairman and honourable members, of the items relating to civil service expenses in 2015-16 draft estimates of expenditure, I would like to highlight the following 2 items. First, civil service establishment. The civil service has supported the government in implementing many new policies and initiatives in a professional and effective manner. We will, on the one hand, continue to encourage bureaus and departments to enhance efficiency through such measures as internal redeployment, streamlining and re-engineering, and on the other hand, render support to the civil service by strengthening the establishment to cope with additional workload. We will support creation of new civil service posts where operational need is fully justified and the work involved cannot be undertaken by redeployment of existing staff or through alternative modes of service delivery. The growth of civil service establishment has been steady at about 1% annually from 2007 to 08 to 2013-2014, followed by an increase of about 1.5% in 2014-2015. The 2015-16 draft estimates of expenditure provide for 2,540 additional civil service posts in various bureaus and departments, representing a year-on-year increase of 1.5% over the 2014-15 revised estimates. There is 173,908 posts, similar to that of 2014-15. Subject to the approval of the 2015-16 draft estimates by the LegCo, the civil service establishment is estimated to stand at 176,448 posts at the end of March 2016. The additional posts to be created in 2015-16 are mainly for assisting departments to implement new policy initiatives and improve existing services, such as the implementation of the Low-Income Working Family Allowance Scheme, measures to increase land and housing supply, as well as arrangements to tie in with the upcoming commissioning of the airport's midfield concourse. Second, financial provisions. In the 2015-16 draft estimates of expenditure, there are financial provisions under field heads of expenditure which are directly related to the policy area of central management of the civil service. The following items are worthy of note. A. Head 37, Department of Health, Program 7. medical and dental treatment for civil servants, a financial provision of $1,232.4 million is proposed for providing medical and dental services for serving civil servants, pensioners, and their eligible dependents at government family clinics and dental clinics, as well as for reimbursement of medical fees and hospital charges. For the former, an allocation of $772.4 million is proposed, representing an increase of $86.7 million or 12.6% over the 2014-15 revised estimate. The additional provision is mainly for setting up additional general dental surgeries and the new families clinic in Fanning and procuring additional equipment. With regard to the reimbursement of medical fees and hospital charges, an allocation of $460 million is proposed, representing an increase of $58 million or 14.4% over the 2014-15 revised estimate. The additional provision is to meet an anticipated increase in applications for reimbursement of medical expenses and hospital charges from eligible persons. B's Head 120 Pensions Program 1 Public and Judicial Service Pension Benefits, an amount of $28,557.7 million is proposed for pension payments to eligible retired public officers. This represents an increase of $2,993.9 million or 11.7% over the 2014-15 revised estimate. The increase is mainly due to an estimated increase in the number of new retirees in 2015-16 and the full-year effect of pension payments for those retiring in 2014-15. Chairman, as the backbone, Chairman, my colleagues and I are pleased to answer questions from members. Thank you. 7 members would like to ask questions. If you would like to ask questions, please press the button so that we can divide up the time. We can about 15 minutes left. So if there aren't other members wishing to ask questions, or rather the number is increasing, well, in this case, I will have a limit of 4 each. So first of all, Mr. Wong Kwok Hing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In relation to the speech made by the S4CS, I would like to ask the following questions. Understand that at end of March 2016, the establishment will be 176,448 posts. I welcome, as I represent the labor sector. I have always been reflecting the views of the civil servants. In the past, I already asked the administration to break the upper limit of 160,000. Well, for 11 years, I've been insistent and persistent in asking for the administration to respond to their demands. Now you would like to increase it to 176,448, so you are being pragmatic and practical. But still, there are still many NCSC staff members who have had a continuous period of service for a long period of time. If we follow your policy, and including what the CE, the former CE, has said, if somebody has been on the employment for a long time and they have good performance, then they should be converted into permanent staff in fact, instead of being CSC all the time. So I would like to follow up on my question. For those having a continuous service of 3 years or more, we have got a certain number of them. I want to know how many have a longer continuous service. There are 5,809 of them. Well, first of all, for the NCSC staff, our policy is that if their work has to be performed by full-time civil servants, then of course the posts will be converted. But then every year, departments and bureaus need additional resources to do this. Therefore, we can't have the conversion one-off. At the same time, for certain posts, the work may be required for a long period of time, but then as a result of the number of hours needed, and it may be seasonal in nature, and also the number of hours needed is less than the normal number of working hours, or we haven't got a relevant rank of officers to deliver the service, and so we may have an NCSC staff member delivering the service for a longer period of time. if we find that it is a post suitable to be taken up by permanent civil servant, then there will be a conversion. I'm not quite happy with the answer given by the administration. For the reply, serial number CSB 036, it is said that 600 posts will become permanent staff posts. So I want to know whether we can be given more information. Yes, in the coming year, you have this new target. In other words, it is a small step forward. But I just wondered if the administration can adopt a longer-term vision and come up with a longer-term planning in the light of what I have referred to earlier. So therefore, those who have worked for 5 years, 7 years, or 10 years, Chair, you have had the experience of being a boss. So if somebody is not performing well, his performance is not satisfactory, he would not have his contract renewed. So SCS, can you not promise to do your best so that in the remaining time, they will become a permanent staff member? You have only got 4 minutes, so Secretary, be brief. As I have said, there are certain conditions. When the conditions are met, then we will do it. Mr. Kwok Wai Keung. If I may turn to CSB 015, in part C of the answer, for the further employment of civil servants, there will be certain adjustments. So my question is, understand that the staff side have always been concerned about the raising of the retirement age of civil servants and its impact on the existing staff. Well, they're worried about the selection process. Yes, you will be institutionalizing it, but what are the concrete measures to make sure that the selection process, when institutionalized, will not give rise to the realization of certain worries? That is, there will be cronyism. And you have talked about fair and objective process. What will be done to achieve that? 2 points here. First of all, basically, for the selection, we hope that it will be similar to that for promotion and recruitment. As you know, that such have always been carried out through a very vigorous process. Other than the department carrying out the work, there is also the head of the department as well as a committee within the department to take care of it. And the Public Service Commission will also monitor the situation.
We are now talking to the departments, and there will be guidelines, and we will also be discussing that with the relevant stakeholders. For the committee or panel responsible for this committee or responsible for this mechanism, would that be formed or set up on the basis of the mechanism? Well, both can take place. So basically, it can be in the form of the current promotion board. So basically, the same people would be forming the committee. But then, as to how it should be what the composition should be, we'll be discussing with the departments. I suggest that we should have staff representatives sitting on the panel or board. We will have to be very careful about this because all along, when it comes to promotion, the promotion board would have to ensure that it's impartial, and we don't want to have too many disputes. That's why we have to be very careful about this. Next, Lee Cheuk-Yan. Chairman, I'd like to follow up on CSB 035. It's about the establishment of the civil service. Well, I understand that some 2,500 posts will be created this year. All along, our stance is that as far as the civil service is concerned, the workload is very heavy, and time is changing. And therefore, in terms of the establishment of the civil service and the actual contingent of the civil service, it has not been able to catch up with the needs of time. But then this year, when you look at the size of the civil service, well, it has become the biggest winner in terms of the growth. But then the biggest winner is the police force. Out of the 2,500, almost 1/4 is for the police force. So some 600 additional posts will be created. So is it that you're trying to maintain stability, and therefore you try to increase the size of the police force without increasing the number of other civilian staff or posts? Well, if you are doing that across the board, then I would be agreeable. But then, for the civilian staff, they are also working very hard. But then, are you trying to reward the police force? And Siwa Leung has been saying that, all right, we are all prepared for the next Occupy movement. Is it that he really likes to have this Occupy movement? So is it a form of reward for the police force for what they have done during the movement? And you are actually slanted towards one side. So is it that the SAR government is now attaching more importance to the discipline services, and then for the other departments, they do not have to increase their staff contingent, and you're trying to only boost the growth of the police force so that they would be working more on security or law and order? And also in your opening statement, you said that there are some newly created posts, and you try to implement the low-income working family allowance scheme, and you would also increase land supply and housing supply, and also to tie in with the upcoming commissioning of the airport's midfield concourse. So you have not really highlighted what has happened to the police force. So is it that you're attaching more importance to the discipline services rather than the civilian posts? No. Actually, we have to look at the needs of the department when we receive such an application. And for the police force, of course, they are also faced with a lot of work pressure. That's why we believe that it's reasonable for us to increase the number of posts. But then for the civilian staff, in fact, for the student finance agency, we have also increased the number of posts because they have to cope with new tasks. And also for the housing department, they've also increased the posts by some 200, and LCSD has also seen an increase by some 200. So we have to look at the actual need of the departments in deciding whether or not they deserve an increase in the establishment. I think you're actually pulling wool over one side, because for the LCSD, actually some of the NCSC staff have been converted to permanent establishment. So actually those posts have been taken up already, but then you're trying to resolve the problem of unfairness, because we've been criticizing this for years. Actually, you're shortchanging them by offering them contract, and then starting from October, you have to accept applications. That's why for the housing department, you will have to create those posts in order to cope with the upcoming work. So for many departments last year, we've been talking about the buildings department, and last year you managed to increase the number of posts, but that is still far from adequate. And then for other departments, all of them have to see a suppression in the staff establishment. Why is it that the police force can increase staff, or can increase the number of posts? In fact, as the table suggests, different departments have seen an increase in their establishment, not just the police force. Next, Mr. Bill Tang. Well, for the new recruits, the administration just announced that the retirement age will be extended to 65. But then for other civil servants, in particular those who are not entitled to pension, in fact, they are not looking for promotion. Why is it that they cannot be allowed to extend their service life until 65? So I'd like to refer to 051. So some for people getting $5,000 as their pension, so there would be some 44,000. So in other words, 1/3 of the civil servants would be getting less than $5,000 as their monthly pension upon retirement. So for those, so how many of them are between 60 and 65? So do you think that 5,000 or below would be enough, or do they have to take up other jobs, or would they become your outsourced contract staff? Have you considered that? I don't have the figures with me, but then to answer Mr. Tang's question, in fact, if you look at the whole plan, that's to tie in with an aging population and also the department's actual operational needs. And of course, for our colleagues' retirement arrangement, well, as far as the government is concerned, well, even if there is no pension, as you know, government's contribution to the Provident Fund would be somewhat higher than what's generally applicable in the private market. But then in 003, in the FEHD, in the coming year, there would be 5.5% of the entire department staff who will be retiring in the coming year. So if you allow the civil servants to extend their work by another 5 years, I think there is an absolute need for this, because some 5.5% of them will be retiring. So, are you quite determined that for the new recruits that they will be allowed to work until 65, and then that will be the end of the story, and there will be no further change to the current arrangement? Or would you be reviewing the time schedule again? Bureau Director, well, for individual department, for example, the FEHD, if they think that there are many people retiring within a very short space of time and they do not have enough experienced staff doing the jobs, then under our mechanism they can apply for that. They can also, well, we have invited the departments to consult their staff to see if they'd like to stay on for a bit longer, and at most that can be for 5 years. But then you have not answered my question. Within the CSB, from your policy perspective, have you already completed your work? You've announced that for new recruits, they will work till 65, and then for the rest, you would not be bothered. Well, there was another question just now. Of course, this is the first step by extending the retirement age to 65 for new recruits, and we've decided that that would come into effect on the 1st of June. But then for the rest, in the next 2 months, we'll be issuing guidelines to the departments. And in answering another question, I was talking about the serving civil servants, whether or not their service period should be extended. Well, the guideline is being worked out. Mr. Sin Chong Kai? 053. Well, towards the end of the answer, you talk about the estimated number of officers retiring. So you've estimated some 600. So why is it that you are not able to estimate the number of people retiring and still you can come up with this figure? So that's the estimate to cater for unanticipated retirement cases. You have a table. Towards the end of the table, well, before the total figure of 6360, you have this estimate to cater for unanticipated retirement cases, and you've got 600 here. Well, I'll have to invite the Treasury to answer the question. The Director of Treasury. Well, under the old pension scheme, well, civil servants can opt to retire between 55 and 60. That's why we will have to set aside, so we will have to make provision for these people or civil servants who might not have reached the normal retirement age, and still they can opt for retirement between 55 and 60. That's in line with the past trend, and also looking at those who are actually eligible for pension. We have been looking at their age profile, and we have now come up with this figure of about 600 colleagues who might be retiring between 55 and 60, so they would be seeking early retirement. So for extending the retirement age, yes, you have a system that will be implemented. So for new recruits, they will retire at 65, and then for the serving civil servants, the departments will be selecting some of those and invite them to stay on until 65. So what about the impact on the pension payment? So does that have any impact on the estimates on the pension commitment? So what is going to happen if they retire later? All right, for serving civil servants, there are two approaches. Either they first retire and then they would get re-employed on contract terms. So in this case, the pension payment or calculation would not be affected. But then for a serving civil servant, if they stay on in their present post, then of course they would not be treated as having retired, and therefore they would not be getting the pension payment yet. And therefore, the total pension gratuity will increase, or retirement gratuity will increase. But then we haven't got the actual figures yet. So there is no question of somebody, unless he is reemployed. So there is no question of somebody getting the pension as well as the monthly salary at the same time. No. All right, my question is in relation to 025, and I'm grateful to the member asking this question. It's about NCSC staff converting to the permanent establishment. So the administration said that they would not be able to provide some figures because even if you convert, it would be done on the basis of an open recruitment. So the departments would not be directly converting the NCSC staff to the permanent establishment. That's why they do not have the figures. But then at least you can do a head count, and you should have known the actual number of cases. So I don't understand why you're not able to provide the figures. It said that the figure is so small that is really very shocking. And also, according to some NCSC staff, they told me that the problem is that if they want to convert to the permanent establishment, they will have to enter or join at a lower point. So the longer they wait, then the pay that they will be receiving will be somewhat higher, and therefore it will become more difficult for them to lower their rank and apply to become permanent civil servants. So that's not fair, because as far as the administration and also the establishment is concerned, there would be this gap. And also looking at in a broader perspective, that would also affect the entire labor sector, because the administration is taking the lead to do this. And well, in my sector, people are thinking that they do not have a prospect. And if for the professional jobs, if they're also outsourced, then you have no idea as to what's going to happen. All right. On the one hand, you said that you would be supporting innovation and technology, and still these people are not treated as professionals. So it's not about the time that one will take to become a permanent staff. So in terms of the number of people, well, how many NCSC are actually at a rank that is higher than the entry level that the departments are recruiting? Because the two figures are very important, because only with the two figures will we be able to tell how serious the situation is. So will you be able to provide the information later? I understand that it differs from department to department, but then for the IT innovation and technology staff, do you have those figures? Bureau Director. My apologies. I'd like to go back on what Mr. Sin just said, because basically, under the new retirement package, that would be the case. But then for people who have retired, they can also be re-employed. So they would be getting the lump sum gratuity, and then they would be re-employed. But then that would be similar to the contract staff. But then on those cases, they would be retired. They would have retired, and then they would be re-employed as contract staff. What about my question? Can you give him the same time to answer my question? All right, to answer Mr. Mok's question, you will have to make up for the lost time for me, Chairman. Please do not do that again next time, because every member has his is entitled to his own time slot. So please repeat the question and answer that again. So I think you have taken up half of a minute from me. Well, basically, under the new retirement system, that would be the case. But then under the old retirement system, there is a chance that after retirement they can be re-employed. So they would be getting the retirement gratuity, and then they would be re-employed as contract staff.
There's already 1 minute gone from my quota. We haven't got the information with us. The difference is that I understand that for some NCSC staff members, maybe their income is higher than that amount that he's going to get if he's to become a civil servant. But then that's because of other benefits. Well, he hasn't answered my question, because somebody would like to have certainty and job security, so they would rather join the civil service, but then they have to take a pay cut and enter at a lower rank. So in other words, you are discouraging the conversion of NCSC staff members into civil servants. Mr. Wang, when we recruit NCSC staff members, their conditions offered to them, the terms offered to them are different from those of civil servants. So if we have got a post similar to that of NCSC staff members, will be fair and open in our recruitment, because the recruitment may ask for a different set of experience and qualifications. So NCSC staff members have to join the open recruitment exercise, and then this is fair to the labor force at large. But of course, for NCSC staff members who have been with the government for a long time, they have already gathered certain experience. From previous figures, indeed, they stood at an advantage. Thank you. Mr. Leung Chi-Cheng. I would like to follow up on a similar issue, and my question has been given an answer by the Bureau. CSB 022. And that's also about re-employment after retirement. Now, I understand that the retirement age of civil servants will be extended, and it will certainly have an impact on the expenditure of the government. In some departments, they may re-employ their civil servants. So such information will be of great reference value to the civil service across the board. Here you have given a figure of 454. I want to know about the departments involved. Which departments have re-employed the civil servants, and what about the impact on the departmental expenditure? I wonder if you can give information to such matters. Yes. I'm afraid I may not be able to answer the question asked by Mr. Leung because the reply refers to the existing picture. In the future, we are providing greater flexibilities to the departments, so the number may not be the same. As to the impact on the financial side, and other impacts, we're going to examine them later. Well, I think this is directly related. This is because there will be a bearing on the manpower, and also it will affect the particular rank involved. So I want to know whether you will try to make reference to the existing arrangements. Secretary, certainly there will be some value if we try to refer to existing picture, but then we are going to draw up a new policy. If departments would like to sort of make use of the experience accumulated, that can be a justification for re-employment. There will be differences, but then we need to implement the new policy before we can tell. Next, Tony Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Of course, I support a reasonable increase in the establishment of the civil service so as to meet the demands of existing and new service. I would like to go to CSB 006, which gives us the figures concerning the increase in the number of civil service posts. For the year 2014-15, there was an increase of 2,556. Have you completed the recruitment procedures? And in the coming year, another 2,500 will be added. I want to know how long would it take to complete the recruitment process, and then they can report duty, and then we can ease the pressure on the existing civil servants. Mr. Chair, for the new posts, they will come up in the next financial year. No, I was referring to the year 2014-15. Maybe Mr. Chen can answer the question. Who will answer the question? Mr. Chairman. Regarding the year 2014-15, in relation to the increase in the number of civil service posts, generally speaking, bureaus and departments will plan ahead to recruit staff members that they need. So it depends on the recruitment progress of individual departments, individual bureaus, or individual grades. I'm sure they will try to arrange for the recruitment procedures ASAP to fill the vacancies. Can we not get the information because we are towards the end of March, and I'm referring to the figures for 2014-15. So I'm sure you can tell us about the recruitment progress. Yes, SES, please give us the information later. Next, I would like to go to CSB 034 and 035. I just want to seek some clarification because for CSB 034, we have got the housing authority. And I understand that there will be an increase of 264 posts to be added. I want to know whether that covers the housing department as well. Mr. Chairman. Yes, Secretary. Yes, I think we are mainly referring to housing department. 49 professional grades, 49 posts in professional grades, and then 117 that are technical, 177 technical posts. And then in 035, we have also got information about the new posts to replace the NCSC positions. So for the case of the HD, I want to know whether all the 264 are new posts or whether they are for replacement of NCSC. 38 are to replace the existing HD contract staff members. Lastly, if I may, follow up on 015, that's about the raising the retirement age of new recruits. Will there be flexibilities? I want to know whether you will create new ranks so as to reduce the impact on the promotional prospect of the existing staff. Be brief. Yes, for the new posts. They will only be created for operational needs. We've got 7 members wishing to ask questions for the first time. So for those who request to ask questions after this batch, I don't think you have a chance because each will get 4 minutes. Just now, members were concerned about the case of the NCSC staff members. If I may follow up on CSB 025, I asked a question, and I hope that the administration can tell us about the number of NCSC staff members having worked in the same department for less than 5 years, 5 to 10 years, etc. So for the year 2013 as well as 2014, we can see some changes. So for the year 2013, when compared with 2014, we have got 753 fewer NCSC staff members. No one can be sure whether the 753 of them have all become civil servants. We don't know why the positions have been reduced. The number of positions has been reduced. Is it because of seasonal fluctuations or they are time limited? We have got 12,147. If you also include those who have been with the civil service for more than 5 and up to 10 years, there are 4,000 plus of them. For the new financial year, understand that departments may continue to recruit more NCSC staff, especially for those who have been with us for more than 10 years. I want to know, how can you tally with the elements of time-limited work, seasonal requirement, etc.? So I hope the SCS would re-examine the case of the NCSC staff. It will be difficult to give the details here. If some positions have not been replaced by civil service positions for a long period of time, answering telephone calls is one example, because we don't have an existing grade to take up such work. And some of the positions might have been there for a long time, but they're still being reviewed. The Hong Kong Post, the LCSD, and even the EMSD are among the departments which have an exceptionally long period, a large number of staff members clocking up a longer service periods as NCSC, like 500 plus of them, and they've been working as contract staff for more than 10 years. I don't think you can really say that it is a seasonal fluctuation. Secretary, we've been reviewing the situation all the time. We've been telling the departments that we have to bear in mind whether there is a long-term need for the positions. Sometimes an NCSC staff member may have been with us for a long time, but then maybe they only have to work for certain parts of the year. And then for trading funds, we have to give them more flexibility because they have to be self-financing. Ms. Emily Lau, if I may also follow up on the extension of the retirement age of recruits. 022, 454 cases this year of reemployment after retirement. Are they all senior posts, very senior posts? And some of them are allowed to work as a contract staff, while others is a case of further employment. It appears to me that there is a lot of flexibility, and it is up to you to make the choice. So just now we have talked about whether people would then curry favors from their seniors. You, of course, would tell us that you have to screen out those that are not performing very well. But how can you make sure that there is a perception that it is a fair system? And what is the criteria to say whether it is a matter of re-employment or contract staff? Are all the 454 posts seniors positions? Now, in this reply, we are talking about the existing picture. Well, it is only when there is no one suitable for promotion that we will allow for further employment. For the details, we're still awaiting the guidelines. Well, departments will be given flexibility. That is, they can cite the reason of keeping the precious experience so as to allow staff members to be re-employed after retirement. I want to know under what circumstances will a contract be offered, and under what other circumstances will it be a matter of re-employment? It depends. It depends on the request put forward. Then there will be a lot of discretion, right? Among the 400 plus cases, that's about the number of cases in the previous year. We haven't got a breakdown as to the grades and ranks. But that's not the point. For the further employment mechanism, I think Ms. Lau is interested in the guidelines. As the SCS has said, we are now devising the detailed guidelines. We hope that, first of all, the guidelines will be applicable across the board. All ranks and grades will be subject to the same guidelines, whether high ranking or low ranking. And we hope that the guidelines will give more details.
As to when the colleague concerned can make the indication or application, and then when the departments concerned will have to consider the application. So in the guidelines, we'll be setting that up specifically so that both the management and the staff side would be able to know what to do at which time. But then, on what basis, on what circumstances would they be offered a contract or become re-employed? Well, the terms of employment would depend on the colleague's current terms of employment. If this colleague is under the old pension scheme, then the current practice for re-employment would apply. So they would be re-employed on contract basis upon retirement. But then for the new pension scheme, most colleagues would be under that scheme. And according to what we said, we can also extend their retirement. In other words, they can continue and not get the retirement gratuity. And that would also apply to people or civil servants who are employed on CSPF, that is the Civil Service Provident Fund, so they could also continue with the service. So when would the guidelines be issued? Well, the guidelines are now being put to consultation with the management of different departments, and we would be putting that out to consult the staff side shortly. But then you will have to come back to the panel as soon as possible, because there would be a lot of discretionary powers, and that would be highly controversial. Next, Ipok Him. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to follow up on CSP 037, as mentioned by Ms. Emily Lau. So it's about the contract for the NCSC staff. And earlier on, Bureau Director I also discussed with you the situation with regard to the housing authority. So there are some drivers, and the question relates to their contract, because we do have this housing department responsible for the day-to-day operation of the housing authority, and it's a government department. But then, strangely, many colleagues have to go by the terms of employment offered by the HA. And this year, out of the 2,540 additional civil service posts, well, some of them would be converted to the permanent establishment. And as you said, well, concerning the HA and the HD, some of them will be converted, but then many of them would be in the professional grades. What I'm concerned about is the drivers, because at present, within the HA, for drivers working under them, they will have to get an AM license before they are allowed to drive. But then if you look at their remuneration package, when compared to government drivers who are driving for other departments, the terms would be somewhat different. For government drivers, they would be dealt with under the civil service mechanism. But then for drivers under the housing department, they are serving as NCSC staff. Of course, there is a historical background to this, and I understand that the Bureau Director has also explained that to me on earlier occasions. But then, apparently, is equal job but then differential payment, because in terms of the promotion prospect and also the top salary points, that would also be somewhat different. And you also talk about continuous service in the reply, and if appropriate, you would also be converting those posts into permanent establishment posts. So, would you consider allowing them to be converted to the civil service establishment so that they would be hired on a par as the other government drivers? Because from what I've heard, many staff are not happy with the existing arrangements. So can you answer that question? Well, I'll ask Mr. Chen to supplement. But then I think the main consideration is whether the HA would like these posts to be converted to the civil service establishment so that they would become government drivers. I'll defer to Mr. Chen. Thank you, Chairman. I think the main consideration is, well, after all, this is the human resource policy of the HA, and then for drivers, they come under the contract staff contingent of the housing authority. So as the Bureau Director just said, it depends on the decision of the HA. Thank you. I would find it strange then. Of course, the HA would be making the decision, but then as far as the Bureau is concerned, under the overriding policy, if they fulfill the requirement of being full-time and continuous, and also they've been providing continuous service to the government, well, I understand that given the number, if you allow the drivers to be converted, then other professional grades might not be eligible. So can you consider lifting the restrictions? Well, as to whether or not these posts would be converted to the civil service establishment, we can take it up with the HA and the HD again. We can ask them to consider. Next, Martin Liao. Thank you. I'd also like to follow up on the question that I asked. CSB 024. And in the budget, you said that in the coming year, within the establishment will grow up by some 2,000 plus posts in order to implement new policies and improve existing services. So my question is, well, under the new policy and also in terms of improving existing services, well, you said that you do not have the relevant information with you, but then apparently the media has provided some answers. Apparently, police force would see an increase by some 603 posts. And earlier on in Mingpao Daily, on the 26th of February 2015, they said that because of the Occupy movement, it shows that there was a shortage of staff. That's why they would be increasing 2 teams of PTU, and as a result, they would need 340 additional people to cope with rallies and demonstrations. So, is that report correct? And earlier on at the PS panel, the Bureau Director also said that if a department suggests that there needs to be an increase in the staff establishment, then they would try and verify if there is such a need in order to ensure that the civil service would not grow excessively. But then how can you be sure about the details of these departments' requests, and how can you confirm whether or not there is a genuine need for the increase? Bureau Director. Thank you, Mr. Liao, for your question. Concerning the increase by 600 plus posts in the police, they will have to upgrade the Chiang police district so that would be upgraded to a district from a division. And they will also have to step up online crimes and also ensure online security. And they will also have to increase the staff establishment for the PTU. And those are the main reasons for the increase in the staff establishment of the police. You talk about implementation of new policies and improving existing services. Do you have the information with you? How can you be sure that individual departments and bureaus have a justifiable need to increase their establishment? Because you have to ensure that the civil service size would not expand unnecessarily. That's why you would have to ascertain their needs before you would allow them to increase their establishment. But then if you don't know, then how can you tell? Well, we do know the information because when they put up this bit, we would be scrutinizing those bits very carefully. So you know the reason, but then you're not going to provide them to us. Well, as I said, those were the main reasons for the increase in the establishment of the police, why they have to increase their establishment by 603. I'm not just referring to the police force. I was using that as an example because there was a report in the Mingpao Daily. But then I was asking about the details for the implementation of new policies and improvement of existing services. But then according to your reply, you said that you did not have the detailed information. Well, we can supplement after the meeting as to the reasons why we have allowed individual departments and bureaus to increase the establishment. But then if you ask the very detailed information, if you ask for such information, that might be privy to the departments concerned. For example, for the police, it might have to do with their internal operations. But then if you are talking about the general types of works to be undertaken by the departments, yes, we can provide that to you. Next, Mr. Tam Yu Chong. I'd like to follow up on CSB 048. Well, 048 is about personal allowance 2014 and 15. That is under subhead 013 personal allowances. Is the 2014-15 estimate is lower than the approved estimate, and you said that the main reason was a smaller than expected number of eligible students receiving education allowances and a lower than expected average amount of allowance claimed by eligible students. So, is the allowance offered to civil servants' children or what? So, why is it that it's lower than expected? Is it that they don't need that much allowance, or is it that they are overage, or what? Well, I'll defer to the director. Yes, director. Thank you, Chairman. Well, this allowance is granted to civil servants for local and overseas education. So eligible civil servants, children pursuing studies both locally and overseas, in particular in the UK, would be eligible for that allowance. As to the number of eligible persons, yes, the number is high, but then in terms of the actual application, that would depend on the schools that they have chosen and their ultimate choices before a decision would be taken. That's why every year when we came up with the estimates, that it might not be entirely correct. So you said that there was a lower than expected number of applications. Is it that in the UK the tuition fee is very high? That's why the actual number of applications has come down? And you said that for the average allowance that they apply for, it also has come down. So which was the real reason for the lower than expected spending or estimates? Well, this is done on a reimbursement basis. So for the actual amount being applied for, it might be somewhat different from what we had expected or estimated. So would it be that there are fewer civil servants who are sending their children abroad to the UK to pursue studies? That's the main reason. Is that the genuine reason? Well, on the whole, there is this declining trend. There is a slight drop. So it's steadily coming down. Okay. But then tuition fees in the UK would be rising. So for the overall allowance that they would apply for should be on the rise too, right? But then for the maximum that can be applied for, that has been capped, and therefore that would not be adjusted. That's why for the maximum allowance that they can apply for if they are studying in the UK, then that's already been capped. So that's the maximum amount that they can claim. So how many children, how many civil servants' children would be eligible for pursuing studies in the UK if they're eligible? So do you have the number? I don't have the figure with me with regard to the eligible to the number of eligible persons, but then next year there will be about 2,000 children of civil servants who would be pursuing overseas studies, and they would be applying for OEA. So you don't have the number of eligible persons, right? Well, some of them might be eligible, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they would apply. So they will have to actually go to the UK to study before they can apply for this allowance. Next, Ip Kin Yun. Next, Claudia Moden. All right, the two are not here. And Mr. Sin Chung Kai, I'll give you 1 more minute. Chairman, I'd like to ask this. Well, from another perspective, under what circumstances? Because for civil servants, if they can receive the pension, and then if they can get another payment, then of course that would be the best. Or else, if they are not able to receive the pension, and if they can only get the salary, then the incentive would be somewhat lower. But then if you are extending the retirement age for civil servants, under what circumstances would they be receiving both payments? I.e., on what circumstances would they be able to receive both the pension and their salary? Well, let me explain this to Mr. Sin. There are two circumstances. One, he is a civil servant who has already got the provident fund. Well, that's not the pension, so he has retired. He has left the government, and if he's re-employed on contract terms, then in simple terms, for the government's contribution, that would be given to him as in the form of a lump sum, and then if he is re-employed, then that would be calculated again. But then for people people on pension, under the old retirement scheme or the old pension scheme, it means that he will have to first retire before he can be re-employed. So he will be getting the gratuity, and then he will be re-employed as a civil servant. As to the NPS, the difference is that he will no longer be allowed to retire. So he will continue to serve, and then during the next few years, he will be getting the additional pension payment. But then under the OPS, there are only several thousand left. So most people would be on the NPS.
In other words, for colleagues under the NPS, by extending the retirement age, it means that they are not able to get their pension. Not immediately. They have to serve the government for a few more years before they get their pension. So he's accumulating more pensionable salary. But if he has already maximized his years of service, say up to 37 years, then there's no additional gain. That's it for this session.